Why are you having trouble completing my request, Facebook?
The recording started.
Hello. We're doing a bit of live shenanigans here.
We're live now.
Ooh.
Welcome.
Here Hello
we go.
all.
What's up?
We're going to begin this with a fresh off the bat warning. This is a Star Wars spoiler chat. There is lots of spoilers happening right about now. So if you haven't seen the movie, first of all, what's wrong with you? You should have. We did a midnight screening for it.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that was real fun.
That was a ton of fun. There was plenty of lightsaber
sick.
battles. Check out our Facebook page, General Games Melbourne, because we're going to have some videos up of those lightsaber
Check out my
battles
knuckles.
real soon. Oh man, my finger's swollen real bad.
You guys cop it?
Oh, yeah.
man. From each other, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I got wrapped a few times. It was good fun.
Yeah,
Yeah, big part of our culture here at General Games. We do the midnight launches and the videos and things. It's really awesome. So we're going to jump straight into the movie. What did everyone think?
Oh man,
It was good.
I loved it.
I think it was a great movie. I mean, obviously, okay, well, first of all, let's go with each person's opinion because I have some strong opinions on certain things.
All right, well, I'll start because I think I'm probably one of the more positive. I think Max is also pretty positive about it, but I'm going to go first. I loved it. I loved almost everything about it. I think JJ had a very difficult task. I think he had to solve a lot of problems and win over the fan base back. You can tell that from the marketing that Disney put out before the movie.
Yeah, for sure.
And I loved it. It was Star Wars, credits. That was it. He was fantastic. I'm not a huge sort of cinema analyzer. I just base the movie on whether I enjoyed it or not.
Sure.
And I very thoroughly enjoyed it every single second. There was lots of ups and downs, and I couldn't get more.
Yeah, I'm definitely on Scott's boat here. I think there was action-packed the whole way through. It felt like JJ was definitely trying to balance this passionate Star Wars fan base that really want to feel like they're watching their Star Wars movies, but at the same time, we've got this new age movie style, kind of Michael Bay-esque, where it's just explosions, actions. We need to keep people excited all the time and have a reason to keep watching this movie. And I think he balanced that really, really well. There's definitely a lot of fan-loving moments in there.
Some fan service.
Understatement.
Yeah, but at the same time, there was always something happening. It felt like there was a lot of action involved. One of the small downsides, but is a bit of an upside in my mind, is that when something happened, it gave you enough time just to absorb it without actually digesting what happened. So you can't fully realize all the different minor things that happened before jumping on to the next part.
I'll take on that. That's because a lot of what happened was completely rushed and was very weak. So they had to do that because if you analysed anything, you would see straight through it.
I think they had to do that a little bit because they were making up for episode 8, but without jumping too far into that just yet, it's something that I feel like I'd have to watch this movie at least another time, if not 2 more times, to really understand everything that's happening.
All right. So my take on it is that obviously the movie was 100% fan service, and it was very much just keep the masses happy, fix all the mistakes that were made in episode 8. What's interesting is that this movie this movie is going to get terrible critical review, or not terrible, but much worse critical review.
It's not good so far.
Epic. Episode 8 got very good critical review, but was disliked by fans.
But episode 8 wasn't a good movie. Why did it get good critical review?
Episode 8 was a great movie.
No, it wasn't.
It didn't. A lot of things didn't make.
The plot was weak as hell. Like the core plot, there has a lot of good parts in that movie, but the core plot was terrible. It didn't make any sense.
It had one big mantra, and the mantra was mantra, which was basically forget the past and move on. It was like all the way through the movie.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was just interesting. I mean, without arguing episode 8, my biggest issue, I think, with this movie and with all the movies was that it's as if they decided they were going to make a trilogy, but at no point considered planning all 3 movies.
Okay,
They literally made 3 separate movies without any kind of continuity. Like, essentially, episode 9 could exist without episode 8 at all. Because nothing in episode 8 supports
sort of.
episode 9.
So you need to see something happen with Luke between 7 and 9?
Yeah, but
that's just be a ghost.
But that's it. But that's what I'm saying, right? Like essentially the only thing that comes out of episode 8 was Luke dies. It doesn't even die. He transcends. Or whatever.
Well, you need Luke to do something. You need the Resistance to get almost wiped out.
But that's cool. But that's just such a minor part.
So I think my biggest problem with this is it was similar to the original trilogy for 4, 5, 6, where they had 3 separate directors for each of the movies, and that's what they tried to do here as well. And I think the biggest problem with that is that the difference between J.J. Abrams and the director for number 8, Scott, do you know who the director was?
Rian Johnson.
I think.
Do I know who Rian Johnson is?
I think there is this new age kind of director arrogance, is what I kind of refer to it as, where each of these directors wants to make the movie theirs. they have to make it unique and they have to put their own little spin on it. And what we saw was J.J. Abrams in number 7 create this storyline thread that he wanted to follow on. And then in number 8, they wanted to turn around and be like, actually, I didn't like anything that JJ did. I really want to make this my movie. I'm going to ignore all of your plot points, add all of my own plot points. And then all of a sudden, we've double backed on number 9, where JJ Abrams came back in and had to spend the first, 30, 40 minutes of the movie saying, here's everything that I think was wrong in number 8. Here's me trying to fix the plot points. Here's me trying to solve all of these issues that were created in number 8 that wasn't my vision. And I'm going to bring number 9 back to my movie.
I completely agree. I think it was a messy execution of what could have been a much better trilogy. Yep. But that being said, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. And yeah, it is fan service, but I'm a fan.
Look, I thoroughly enjoyed them. Look, get me wrong. Okay, so I mean,
Get me wrong?
Don't get me wrong. Of the three of us, I feel that I'm more of a film critic as such, like in terms of that's just who I am. I watch films much more critically, but I tend to try and watch films in 2 ways. I try and watch them both critically in terms of like filmmaking, storytelling, character development, all the art of film, and then I also just watch it in did I enjoy the film? And hell yes, I enjoyed the film. The film was amazing. It was incredible. But in terms of other aspects, there was a lot of things I felt wrong with the plot. I mean, the whole movie was about just wishing for something, and it just happened.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
That's reasonable.
There was so much just convenience. It was like, oh, that's convenient that the hole that the guy died in just happens to have like a very thin wall that they can just walk out of.
Oh, sure, with the snake.
Yeah, like you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And that's all the way through the movie. There's just so much, just because he's doing so much, because the film is trying to do so much to, as you say, make up for the previous film, and also like somewhat progress a plot. They can't dwell on anything. They just have to keep pushing forwards. And the only way they can do that is by things just happening without enough explanation or without any explanation.
Yeah. So we've got something in chat here. Our Annibal says, C-3PO was on fire this film. He had some of the best lines. I completely agree. Yeah. C-3PO's character was the most C-3PO in this. He's like, I'm all positive trying to help, and I can't help you.
The most lovable.
It's like, why can't you help me? I was like, let's do it, but I can't help you. Yeah, and also, he also says Kylo became Supreme Leader in Episode 8, so that makes sense. Like, if Episode 8 didn't happen, he'd have no reason to kill Palpatine.
Yeah, look, I agree.
That's a very good point.
No, I'm not huge spoiler. We haven't got to that point just yet.
We're spoiling Episode 8 now.
Whatever. Well, if we're talking about Episode 9, if you're watching a spoiler cast on Episode 9, doing it wrong.
Yeah, the Emperor doesn't win at the end of this movie.
No, I think, look, the thing I'm getting at is not that the film Episode 8 doesn't need to exist. It's more the fact that in the scheme of three films, 7, 8, 9, if you look at them, it's as if... Sorry, I'll stop shaking the table. It's as if...
He's furious.
It's as if there was just no plan. Like, they made Episode 7 without having any idea what they were going to do in Episode 8, without any idea what was going to happen in Episode 9.
Yeah, back to what I said. I think J.J. Abrams had the idea for 7, 8, 9, but this Disney's idea of changing the directors and trying to get different art and flows, that really was a bit of a problem.
Disney was very hands-off. I don't know everything that happened behind the scenes, obviously, but from interviews and stuff, you can tell that Disney said, okay, JJ's done this, cool, it's too big to fail now, we're just going to let other people have a crack at it, and it's Star Wars, what's going to go wrong?
But that said, there's still, even with different directors, there was no creative direction.
Like the Avengers have different directors.
But there's...
So they work perfectly, I'm saying it's to your point.
Sure, exactly, but they have different directors, but I guarantee you that they have a big storyboard that spans across multiple movies.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. The writing is consistent across all 22 Marvel films.
Whereas this, not only was it different directorial styles, it was different writing style. It was completely different.
It was very different.
The writing in Episode 7 did not match what happened in Episode 8.
Yeah, 7 and 9 were the same, and then 8 was just a different movie.
8 was, you've got, like I said, you've got that mantra all the way through, like, forget the past, move on. And then Episode 9, the first thing they're doing is, let's explore the past. Like, it's like the complete opposite.
I think moving on from directors and the difference between 8 and 9, I think let's focus more on Episode 9 and some of the things that we really enjoyed and some of the progression that happened through this movie. So again, like, to jump back to our Annibal, we're talking about Kylo here, and Kylo, his progression through these movies. And first off, I'd like to say, Monsieur Driver, you drove this film incredibly well. He truly was just an outstanding actor throughout this. Every time he was on show, every time he was on screen, he just took it all. He was really the center of attention. He made himself the center of attention, and he did it so well. The progression of Kylo from this emo teenager, not sure where he sits, his master trying to kill him, into supreme leader, into really making his own character. And we saw through him killing Snoke that he was prepared to surpass the Master. And we all thought that was a very Sith thing. That's what Sith do. They kill their Masters, become the Master. But I think Kylo was one of the first to break that mold, where he wasn't necessarily trying to become the Master. He was just sick of being controlled, and he really wanted to make his own character in this movie. And is it Adam Driver? Adam Driver did that absolutely
I thought you were being
perfectly.
fancy. You didn't know his name.
He did it perfectly. I think he really was a star, even though Rey's definitely a center figure throughout all of this, and she did really, really well. Adam Driver, every single moment he was on stage, just
I think
really
the
made
performances
it his own.
from the main cast were really good.
Yep,
I think it was really good the way that Poe fell into his Han Solo role, but he didn't just become Han. He took it on, and it showed in that first scene with the Falcon. He's driving with Chewie. It showed that he's a great pilot, but he's not a great Han character, and he's trying to fill a role that doesn't exist, and then he gets lumped with the burden of leadership. He's like, this isn't me.
Yeah.
Like same what Han did, it's like a parallel, but not exactly the same. I thought it was a good job of showing parallels without, and then slight deviations from that.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that.
Like we had Finn as a brand new character in the series. Like we didn't have a Finn character in the previous trilogy.
Yeah.
Like we had Rey doing the Luke thing and Poe doing the Han thing, and then Finn's just this other guy who's is awesome. He adds a lot. It was really cool.
He really felt the middle role where he's almost like a Leia-ish style character. I feel like he's trying to fill the gaps. He's the cement that holds a lot of the team together, because he's got that connection originally from Rey, and at the same time he's got that camaraderie ship with Poe.
He also has relevant skills.
Exactly right. And I think if you've just got Poe and Rey battling against each other constantly, they're just butting heads, and I feel like it'd get very abrasive on screen. You wouldn't see a lot of chemistry happening between them.
That scene when the Falcon comes back on fire and they just yell at each other for it was fantastic.
And we're sitting here watching, they've got a fire somewhere in the engine. We'll get some extinguishers on that. But no, the whole thing is just like burning to the ground, and Rey's just losing herself. Yeah. And I think without Finn playing that kind of middle ground role, though they have a lot of chemistry on screen, they're incredible actors, I think it would become too abrasive, that chemistry, and it'd really just look like they're butting heads. But Finn allows for them to really smooth each other and have that connection. And I think very quickly, it shows in that one scene. I think everyone absolutely loved this scene when Finn's got a huge problem with Rey. Rey runs off and does some Rey things. And at the same time, Poe just got the mantle of leadership, and they run at each other. They grab each other. And the first thing both of them say is, I can't do this alone. I need you right now. Like, I need your help, because you're actually a really close friend of mine. You're a brother. You're a comrade. And that is what helped connects the rebellion to people like
friends.
Rey, and connects Rey to people like Poe.
Yeah, sure. On a less serious note, best character in the movie, the Muppet that's driving the ship at the start.
He gets his head cut off.
What? No.
The guy who gives him the plans?
No, the different one. Like they
the
open
one that
up,
does the
they open up the little hatch and they're like, take us to this place. He's like, okay.
On the Burning Man planet.
Yeah.
There's two humans on that planet. There's Billy Ray, Lando Calrissian, and then there's another random white dude in a sea of elephant people.
Yes.
And he's nobody. I thought it'd be some rad cameo. But if someone knows who that is, please tell me in the chat, because I think it's got to be someone important.
But that said, best character in the movie. Okay.
The okay Muppet. Is it Frank Oz? I bet it's Frank Oz.
Probably.
He had like a quota, and he didn't have enough Yoda lines for this movie. He only had like 2, so he had to get a random.
I had to get him in there.
Taxi driver.
Some other cool stuff that's still fan service, but very cool. When you're hearing all the Jedi talk to Rey towards the end. They're all voices. I don't know how many people paid attention to that, but they're all a lot of the original voice actors for pretty much all of those characters. Like, that was a massive amount of fan service.
Christensen came in at some point. Hayden Christensen was there as well.
Really wished that scene ended up being like a very poor Photoshop Christmas card of all the different Jedi. I was really hoping when she looked into the sky, it would be like Hayden Christensen's face, like big, bright in the center.
Remember
and then like Yoda,
you are,
like the clouds form. Hayden or Jake Lloyd, young Anakin.
So my question, and this is a question to you guys, because I'm sure it's been discussed at some point, but it's worth talking about.
Yeah, we'll discuss it here.
So the idea of, which has been an overarching thing through all the movies, the whole balance deal, right? Balance the Force.
We're jumping all the way to the end of the movie, by the way.
We're
jumping
around.
We're jumping to the end. If you want to watch that middle, you got to go watch it yourself. We're not here to chat about that.
All right. Balance
our animal called it Burning Man 2. Yeah. Please mention the cameo by the composer John Williams. I didn't see that. Where was he?
Yeah, was he in?
On screen for a second, but as a musician, it made my night.
Yeah.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah. That's sick. That's cool. That's nice little.
I did not know John Williams was in the movies.
Yeah, why not, man? He's composed the score to every single one of them,
and Superman,
and among other things. I'm talking.
In episode 8, I was waiting for during the Leia scene for him to just swell into the Superman theme. She's just
why not? Yeah,
let's not talk about that.
Yeah. Anyway, so Rey at the end, obviously, massive spoiler. Kylo dies. Well, Rey dies.
Freaking Chewie dies and Kylo dies
Anyway.
and Rey dies and Kylo dies. Oh,
Han
God.
dies too. Leia dies.
Okay, so Rey dies.
C-3PO dies for a bit.
Kylo then
goes evil.
Kylo then sort of reaches into his good powers
Yeah, he force heal.
and transfers some of his life energy, which
Which was a little foreshadowing. We saw Rey doing that a couple
exactly.
times
That
earlier
was
in
the
that
theme
movie.
of the movie, the transfer of
it was of life.
power.
Definitely.
yeah.
I think it was a
back and
reference of it. They were really sorry to interrupt, but really trying to emphasize the good side of the Force and the evil side of the Force. And that Force here was really trying to show.
My immediate point now is, how is there a balance if the only Force person, like the only powerful being left, is Rey?
Well, that's what happened in Episode 4, right? Vader was the only Jedi left after he killed them all, allegedly, and that's why Luke rose to power.
But Luke was there. He was hidden.
Yeah, of course.
At this point, no one's hidden. There's no one
There's
knows.
all those kids that have the powers, and then Finn was getting Force sensitive, and in
okay,
Episode
so-
7, the Awakening would have risen a
I
lot
have a
of
different
people.
take on that. My take on that is that Rey is as evil as she is good. She is the balance.
Yeah, so I have a huge theory on this. I'm going to quickly duck onto what Scott was saying, where you've got the Force Awakens. I think there was, once we had all the Jedi kind of died, and then the Sith, you've only got the one or two, and a lot of those Sith lords were dying as well. The Force starts to spread itself, because rather than being centralized in these huge epitome heroes of Jedis, the Force has to go somewhere, and that's where you get these little kids, Harry Potter in the brooms into their hands.
You get Broom Kid. Yeah.
You get Finn getting this feeling on the Force, and that spreads around a lot more. Now, in regards to Rey, big spoilers, Palpatine is obviously alive, and there's this huge fight where Rey has to try and become the Sith Lord, and when you kill the Sith, the Master, you become the Sith Lord, and you have every generation of Sith inside you.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
We don't know if that was his plan or he was telling her that so she wouldn't kill him. We don't know.
Yeah.
Something was happening. He was going to end up possessing her probably
So
in
now,
Sith magic.
the big problem here is that we've got Kylo, Rey, and Palpatine. Now, if Kylo is alive and then Rey's alive, you've got these two dichotomies on the Force. You've got the good and the bad, but Palpatine's obviously the super bad. So the Sith is obviously very swayed on the dark side of the Force. So Palpatine needs to die. Then we have, if Palpatine dies, we have Rey and Kylo. They're both the good and dark side of the Force. However, again, Kylo has gone through a redemption arc this whole series. Suddenly we've got two good characters. Now, my desire was for Rey to go to the dark side, Kylo to go to the good side. They kill Palpatine, and suddenly we've still got this balance, which has been really fun. But that didn't happen, so Kylo's died, and now suddenly we have Rey.
Kylo died a good guy, though.
Exactly
he died
right.
as a Jedi, not a Sith.
And we still need to see this balance in the Force that you're talking about. Now, what Rey has come through is, spoiler alert again, she gets the orange lightsaber at the end of the movie, which signifies her turning into a grey Jedi.
Yeah, that was
Now-
that was all the way.
Grey Jedis haven't actually been canon since Disney took over, so she's something.
She's something, but she is very Grey-esque.
In my
throughout
mind,
the movie, yeah.
what this is trying to emphasize is the fact that, again, the biggest evil power in the world, Palpatine, has been killed. The potential good guy / evil guy, Kylo, has been killed. Again, I have a theory on why he couldn't have taken Rey's role, and Rey had to die for that, but we'll go for that in a moment. So now we've got Rey, who has performed Force Lightning during this movie as well as Force Heal. So we're talking about a character that, if you're talking in D&D terms, you've got your chaotic evils, you've got your lawful goods, and then you've got your true neutrals. And I think the balance that Rey brings to the Force is that she is truly a neutral person. She will do what she believes is best, and I don't believe she will hesitate in what she does. She won't kill innocents, but if you've wronged her, if you've wronged her friends, she won't hesitate to strike you down. At the same time, she won't support evil overlords, but she might also not be this, strict lawful good of the Jedi where, you have to follow the Jedi code or else
She's not a Jedi.
you're wrong.
She's not a Jedi.
She's had Jedi training from Leia, and she's read all the books, but Luke's
I agree
told her that needs to go, and that whole...
And
the
Luke
Jedi
tried to
were
burn the
wrong.
book
No,
back in number 8.
Yoda burnt the book. Yoda didn't give him. He's out.
That's exactly what we're saying. I think the Jedi Code itself was dismantled, as well as when we killed Sheev Palpatine, we actually saw Rey destroy the Sith throne, the actual throne that the Sith sit on, that have the entirety of the Sith, going to them and their source of power, a huge source of their power, was actually destroyed, which meant they can no longer really be a Sith Lord, per se. And so we saw both sides of this. We saw the Jedi book being burnt. We saw the Sith throne being destroyed.
Well, she has the books. The books weren't burnt. Yoda...
She has the book.
No, we have Luke's diaries.
No, we have the books.
We have the books.
The ancient texts were put in the Millennium Falcon before
okay.
Yoda struck the tree.
Cool. So I think that, again, we show a true neutral, and that's where this balancing of the Force comes.
Yeah, so you're agreeing with me, basically.
Yeah. it is a completely balanced
So
situation
Rey
right now.
is the balance of the Force because she feels essentially both sides of it.
Yeah, that is why I think Kylo. So now to jump back to a previous point, I think Kylo had to die and Rey had to live because Kylo is such a passionate and involved character in these movies. He can never be true neutral. He will always try and do whatever he can do, whether it be good or bad, to the best of his ability, and he will throw himself wholeheartedly into that because that's the character he is. So he can't be neutral. He either has to be all the way good or all the way on the dark side. He can't
I
be.
tend to agree. He can't. He would struggle having the balance because the whole way through episode 8 and 9, he was feeling the pull of the light side, and that was causing him pain.
Yeah.
He has to be one or the other.
When he killed Han, he thought in his mind he was saying, "This is what I have to do to truly become a Sith. I have to strike down the last part of Ben Skywalker," which is what he did to himself. Right? He tried to kill himself, and then Leia comes back and says, "You're wrong. Ben's still alive. Kylo's actually the one that's dead." And that's because there was so much torn between Kylo/Ben during this that he could never go full dark side. He regretted killing Han so much.
Yeah,
it haunted him daily.
Yeah, he delayed on killing Leia, and then so yeah, in episode
and he
9,
held back at Rey as well, and actually let Rey kill him.
Yeah, that was sweet.
Strange.
Actually,
That was sick. So there was a huge fight. I absolutely loved it. I frothed at the water scenes, my God. But Kylo goes to strike down Rey, and in that moment, Leia pops into his head and says, "Ben, this is not you. Kylo's dead.
let it go.
Ben is alive, and you need to understand that." And then he couldn't kill Rey, and then Rey turns around and kills Kylo.
So, all right. So yeah, one thing I've just thought, let's throw some light stuff in there. Some lighthearted stuff. His hilt guard actually came into effect. It was useful.
But it was stupid. Like, so you've got a blade like this, right?
Yep.
So it's got the thing here. This part from here all the way to here is like handle.
Yep.
This part is laser. This part is laser.
Well, they used
so
it.
she came down like this, and it should have cut it in half.
Yeah, well, it didn't. So
It
deal with it.
exploded his
Deal
stupid
with it.
face.
Hilt guard or whatever it's called. I don't know what they call it.
I don't
Is
like
it just a
vindicating
hilt?
this.
Is
This
it a hilt?
ridiculous. Yeah.
Other thing was that I was somewhat disappointed with was the Knights of Ren. I felt were utilized in a really strange way.
So I
Yeah.
think the Knights of Ren were really cool and great characters. I think they were supposed to be fleshed out in episode 8 and they weren't.
Yep.
So they're like, well, we can't completely just ignore them.
Yeah.
That we had to put them in. So I think not giving them a story was better than trying to ham-fistedly shove one in.
Yeah, true, but they turned them into these like weird kind of like spies that.
They're like elite. They're like SEAL Team 6 kind of
Yeah,
like
like
he's
first order troopers.
Kylo's personal bodyguard, but
Yeah,
like,
kind of.
why does a
But they also fought
Sith
like
need a
poo.
personal bodyguard?
They just fought like poo. They sort of
Well,
sculpt.
they're not force sensitive, right?
They sculpt. Well, we don't know that.
But assuming like if they were fought, they'd probably have lightsabers because we all thought that they were going to be like
They had vibro weapons.
we all thought they were going to be like Jedi that Luke was training and Kylo turned them again.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not the case because they don't have lightsabers.
Yeah.
And then
Well, either way, I was a bit disappointed in the fact
they're
that
like special ops units.
they turned them into sort of these like weird skulking in the shadows kind of dudes.
But they got results every time that they weren't fighting a force user.
That's true.
And
That's reasonable.
Because the force users in this movie are ludicrously powerful. Like the Rey and the Kylo and the Palpatine and everything's just crazy, like turned up to 11 style power.
Yeah, definitely.
So, huge spoiler to put more context.
Stop saying
they're all
spoilers. The whole thing's spoilers.
It's all spoilers. Rey is actually a Palpatine. Palpatine is
we know who's in the
Chief
movie.
Palpatine's her grandfather, and I think when we talk about the Skywalker saga, which is kind of almost all 9 of these movies,
That is all 9 movies, yeah.
the most powerful Force wielders, the most powerful pilots, the most powerful swordscrafts in lightsaber craft in all of the galaxies are the Skywalkers and the Palpatines, and that's why it helps to explain why Rey had such a huge connection to the Force and why she was able to harness it and learn and train so quickly, because it's just like Palpatine is incredibly powerful.
I think that having the characters be very powerful was really entertaining, and the
definitely.
cinematics were really awesome. That scene at the end where she passes in the lightsaber through the Force was so
Yeah, that
cool.
was really cool. And then the little shrug that he does when he's like,
He was just like, magic trick. See?
I'll put my hands behind my head, don't worry about it. Oh, well,
I
got a lightsaber now.
The little like, yeah, all right, let's go.
He's like, well, now I've got a thing.
And then the other thing that was really cool and on a similar sense of like just cool sort of little acting bits was the proposition that what's his name made to the chick that he met. Wow, words and people.
Finn, Kylo, Finn. Yeah, right.
Finn's no, not Finn.
What are you talking about? Who are we talking about?
Poe. Sorry,
Poe.
they got there. Right in the
Oh,
end.
we meet the Stormtrooper.
No, yeah, so like Poe's
No, there's Power Ranger.
yeah, Poe's little proposition at the end of the
Oh, that was
he's just like,
fantastic.
and she's like,
No.
No, he did the... Gave me the eyes.
He's like, yeah, fair enough. Worth a try. That was great.
That was a nod to the audience. I like that.
Oh, speaking of nod to the audiences, so when they're trying to destroy the Star Destroyers, the big things were up on the Sith world.
There was a few of those.
They take down the original transmitting beam so that all the beacon, so all the ships can get into orbit and get their shields up, and then they destroy the hull to stop that from happening. And they say, "Oh, they're here on speeders! Quick, interfere with the speeders! Shut them down!"
Too bad we brought horses.
Which
Which
again goes with what I was saying earlier. Like, there's a lot of that just sort of wishing for the next part of the plot. Like, if this movie was a standalone movie, that style of writing would be heavily criticized by anybody for being. It's almost like the plot gets pulled along. It doesn't naturally develop. Like, A doesn't lead to B and B doesn't lead to C. It's like B happens before A and then kind of drags A to it. Like, all the way through the movie, there's just like these so many scenes where it's just like, wouldn't it be convenient if this happened? Oh, look at that. It happened. And like, oh, well, now we're in kind of like a zone where nothing can really progress. So they'll just happen to run into someone. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many just conveniences that happen. And I feel
there
like
was a few. I will concede that point. There was a few, but I think it definitely suffered from the sense of it had to do so much so quickly that you had to have a slightly.
He only had
lax.
an hour and a half to play with the movie because the first almost hour, 45 minutes, was him trying to solve the problems of 8 and say, hey,
I
look,
disagree.
There's a few plots that we're missing.
They just disregarded it. They just disregarded 8.
No, they didn't. So the first 5 minutes was them undoing all of 8. Palpatine basically sits on a chair and looks at the camera and says, all right, it's been me this whole time. It's been Snoke was nobody. It's been me the whole time. Everyone in your voice is me, and it was brilliant. I thought it was a really good, succinct way to just say, "This is what's happening now. Forget what you know."
That's it. That's all they needed to do to disregard an entire movie.
That's what they did do.
But that's not an hour of the first movie.
No, it's 5 minutes.
That's 5 minutes, and then they started telling the.
Then they go straight to the
what
Rey
they did do
Poe.
was completely disregard 8, which is fundamentally why so many
Checking
people.
the camera.
Fundamentally why so many people and critics have such an issue with the movie in that regard, because it's like it just feels like, again, it comes back to my initial point, which is a real shame. They knew they were going to make 3 movies. They knew they were going to make a trilogy. Why did they not have a plan?
They knew they were going to make a lot more than 3 movies.
But you know what I'm saying? They knew they were going to make the trilogy. Like, they were going to make the core movies. Why did they not have a plan for each movie laid out? Why did they go in and start making episode 7 without knowing what was going to happen in 8 or 9? Why did they then start making 8 without knowing how they were going to finish it in 9?
Don't have the answer for you.
It's just silly. It's like it's not like in the original movies when
they were 3 years apart from each other. To be fair,
these
originals? The originals.
Yeah, but the original movies. That's what I was about to say. When Lucas made Star Wars, he had no conception of how big it was going to be or whether he was going to make more. It was just a movie. It was a standalone movie that stood up in its own right. And then obviously the success, and then he's like, okay, we'll make a trilogy. But when they started making the trilogy, they obviously planned out episode 5 and episode 6 as a single plot line.
Well, 5 and 6,
Yeah. So they those 2 movies are completely cohesive. Why is it that the most recent 3 are completely as if they're 3 separate movies?
I don't think we'll have an answer for that, but here we are.
Look, there were some mistakes maybe made, some confusion that happened between that, and maybe they want to try a different art style. And I think, as Scott kind of said, Disney just felt it was too big to fail.
Yeah, Star Wars couldn't fail.
And look, mistakes do happen, and that sucks. But
7 was the make or break point. They thought if 7 succeeded, there'll be no stopping us. And obviously that wasn't true.
Well, exactly. I mean, it was, but directorial.
But when it came out.
Yeah, of course. directorial style aside, art style aside, all that stuff. From a bare bones screenplay, it's not cohesive. It doesn't flow. And that's my issue with it.
I'm sure, and that's reasonable. I do think it flows, but that's for a different reason. I really liked. Let's talk about some things I really liked. I liked how there was a theme of the power, as we talked, the life-giving thing.
Yeah,
I really cool that Rey healed the snake, and then she said to BB-8, "You do the same thing," and then he literally just goes and does the same thing. He heals that Dio robot. He just charges him. Like, that's brilliant.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
no touch me.
I was like, BB-8's just like, yeah, all right, I would do that. Then he goes over, he's like, boop, and it heals that robot. That was
And there's all
fantastic.
voice from Leia originally saying, you'd be surprised what droids can do.
Don't underestimate it.
Yeah, and then
Which was as in like, you can't use a lightsaber, and Leia's like,
speaking again,
sure?
which
You
again,
sure
which again leads into my point of just the pure convenience. Isn't it convenient that this random droid that they just happen to animate happens to have the coordinates to where they need to
it
go?
wasn't necessarily a random droid. That was on the ship they were looking
Yeah, but
for.
it's still that is what you would consider in writing like a wish. You know what I mean? Like, there's no reason for that to happen. There's no logical reason.
I don't know.
Other
If
than
I want a ship and I need to know how to fly it, I'll animate one of the droids kicking
If you
around.
think
That
about what
makes sense.
R2-D2 and C-3PO have done, they've been around for literally
Sure.
ever. Like, they've got an extensive understanding and catalog.
So think about
of all that stuff.
think about that Sith Hunter's character. I can't remember his name.
Otto wasn't it?
Otto, yeah.
He's mistreated that droid. Why the hell would the droid know anything about his plans?
It's a
It's
droid.
a droid. It's an astromech.
He's mistreated the droid. Why would he
It's a
explain?
robot.
But why would he explain to the droid what he's
He
doing?
wouldn't, but the droid's the one that
It's
has
got
to
the nav computer.
Yeah, put in the nav computers.
I don't think the
put all
droid
that,
knew
like-
anything about the plans.
He never went there.
No, but it's
He
would
never
be on his like flight chart.
Well,
Like that-
he didn't know how to get there because
we-
he never found the thing that he needed to get there.
Yeah, he did, and he died.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, we
Without
can
ever
radio it through. You never
Yeah, the
know.
dagger.
Yeah, that's but what I'm saying is, see what I mean? See how much reaching you're having to do to make that
I
fit?
didn't find that an issue at all. I didn't have any of these. I didn't get pulled out at all. I was
Oh,
along for that ride the
look,
whole time.
Granted, I will say that it was well done because it didn't detract, I don't think, too heavily from the movie, but it is an issue I have with the writing.
Sure.
I definitely think that in particular, ignoring of like what the droid was as a plot point per se, I think what that showed and this reoccurring theme of things like C-3PO having to kind of say, I'll sacrifice myself for the good of everyone, and actually making us feel horrible about that fact. Like, we didn't want C-3PO to sacrifice himself,
No.
but we knew about that.
Well, I didn't know how much I cared about that droid.
I think
I don't like that character.
What this is trying to do for us is just humanize droids. I think
That scene
this
was
movie,
terrifying, by the way.
Yeah.
The red eyes, like, oh my god.
I love that the whole a big plot point of this movie was them having essentially driver issues. It's like they're like sitting there, like they're all sitting there, like a Google open. They're like, all right, so we can find the file, we just can't read the file. Yeah. And someone's like, oh, try this. He's like, well, I've tried that, it doesn't work. Restart it. Yeah, it doesn't work because of this. Okay, it's them trying to solve a very fundamental tech issue.
Anyway, to start, I don't know, maybe wrapping up a little bit. To follow on from what you've said, stuff I really liked about the movie. I thought that viewing wise, the movie was incredible to watch. It was a spectacular movie. The special effects were great, except for one scene, but we won't talk about that.
I got to rewatch. Oh, that's in the trailer.
Which one?
So they made a decision with Carrie Fisher to not like put a separate actor in and try and like deep fake her face or anything like that. They decided to be respectful and only use the scene she's already been in.
Yeah,
because they did a lot of the filming for this before she passed, and they used all the lines she'd already done.
Yep.
What that meant was, in some scenes when she interacts with another character, they have to like rotoscope that in or like superimpose it and composite it, and it was a little rough around the edges.
There was one scene where Rey hugs Leia, and it's like she like go. It's like something out of a Bethesda game. Like they go through each other, and it's really weird. Anyway, overall, I thought the movie was incredible viewing. It was, I think, the right length. I mean, again, more fan service would have been to make it a bit longer, and
I would have watched a 6-hour movie.
Exactly, everyone would have. But I felt like
maybe at midnight's a bit rough.
I was afraid the whole time that like, oh, they're going to cut it and we got another movie to go.
Oh,
Like,
that'd
I
be
was
the worst.
so afraid of that because it was so much packed in.
they were never going to do that. But I think it was the right viewing length. I think that they gave. I enjoyed the fan service. Like, I mean, I'll critique it all I want from a writing perspective, but I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. It was incredible to watch. I do understand why it's not going to get a huge critical success. However, it will get a massive success from fans.
It'll make a boatload of money.
Yeah. Unlike, which is funny because it's funny how that works. Like the episode 8 was very much liked by critics and hated by, or not hated by fans, but was
a lot of issues with
there
fans.
was an inverse.
Yeah.
Whereas this one's going to go the other way. Critics aren't going to like it very much. Fans are going to be like, shut up, you're wrong.
Cool. So I'm going to throw in one of my favorite things about this movie, which is actually a bit of out-of-the-box thinking. They said that they're going to stop doing trilogies, and they're going to be doing singleton movies from here, or things like TV shows like The Mandalorian. And what this says to me is, especially because the Skywalker saga is done, we're going to get a lot of world building. We're going to get a lot of extended universe. Disney turned around when they took over and said, everything that you know about Star Wars is false, except the movies and the games that we helped make.
I like lower stake
I agree.
movies.
So
I
I'm
feel like
really
episode
keen.
8 and 9 and 7 for that matter needed with such high stakes.
Yeah.
Even if they were masterpieces, people would still hate them.
I
So
agree.
I'm really excited. What happens to this universe when there's no more Stormtroopers? There's no more First Order.
Yeah,
there's no more Final Order. There's no more Empire.
The rest of the content's going to be very
Does
much
Scum
bonus.
start taking over? We're just going to have the Hutts. We're going to have a huge Hutt saga where it's just,
Jabba's cruising around.
like, straight up, like, these Scum people are probably going to start taking over worlds. There's more, like, slavery that could be happening. Or are we going to have, like, a militia-style thing on these planets? Like, these planets are now going to have to start creating police forces for themselves.
Sure.
So I'm really excited to see these movies, these TV shows, more things like The Mandalorian.
A lot more bonus content. We're going to get ourselves a lot more of the Silmarillion style stuff, where it's just like the stories in between the story.
Yep.
Which will be really cool.
We got an Obi-Wan movie coming out. We got the Mandalorian TV series. What else we got? We got
They want to do another Han movie.
give me a Maul movie. He's been teased in so many products.
Maul,
like obviously he's prominent in Rebels
There's
and Clone Wars.
We saw the Ghost in this movie. We could just get a Ghost movie.
Well, let's be honest. The reason
It's a ghost movie.
we're not going to get a ghost
Just
movie.
follow the ship. I don't care. Just follow the ship.
The biggest reason that Disney, it's a speculation here, but I genuinely believe that one of the biggest reasons that Disney bought the franchise was not necessarily for, as you say, the Skywalker series.
It was a lot of that.
It's a lot of that, but it's not so much for the Skywalker series. Yeah, obviously for money, but I mean, they weren't buying it for just that. They were buying it for the potential intellectual property. Because think about it now, what you can do with that universe. Think about how many stories, as exactly what we're saying, how many stories can spew out of that.
And I think they actually cleanly, when they turned around and said, hey, look, we're going to buy this and ruin everything beforehand, everything, the comics, all these old books, they mean nothing. And I think though that does suck in essence,
Go ahead, Darkness.
I think that they now get to create their own universe. They get to make things cleanly.
Well,
Everything's going to make sense within the canon. Because before we've had like Luke creating Force lightning at times. We've had Chewie both dead and alive simultaneously in this canon.
That's not canon. None of that's canon, remember.
Anymore. That's what I'm saying. So
however,
this is their ability to just cleanly
There
move
is something
forward.
quite funny. I did see something, just on a side note. I did see, I think it was one of the it was like the CEO of Disney, from Disney, or like one of the board
Higher
members
ups,
of Disney. And they basically came out and publicly said, look, the problem with Star Wars at the moment is there's nowhere to go. We have no
I know.
we have no
that woman who
story
said
to
it.
go. It's like, and then everyone just like
Get no source material.
Yeah,
he
everyone
said.
just ridiculed her with like extended universe stuff and just like,
All
what
of
is
this
wrong with
is
you?
happening.
But anyway, someone wanted to ask questions, but they yet to ask the question. So
Darkness 5632 says he has 2 questions, or she has 2 questions about the Rise of Skywalker. Just saw it a few minutes ago. That's pretty sweet. Thanks for tuning in.
I bet you're
What are those questions?
yeah, ask those questions.
We
after
saw
that.
this movie and then straight to Pancake Parlor because we needed a 3-hour debrief.
We had the best server.
Yeah.
Every time we walked in, we switched. We just without missing a beat, switched to fake spoilers. Like ridiculous, like ludicrous spoilers.
Oh, like Chewie died?
Yeah. No. Not about that.
Han came back?
Don't even say that. I was so upset. And then I was so happy. Here we go. First off, why is the Death Star wreckage on Endor? Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't it blow up over Endor in episode 6? Second, I'm not sure how I feel about Star Destroyers essentially being in this movie. The Death Stars being the movies. Sorry. The Star Destroyers being the Death Stars movie.
You right?
I can't read.
So he's saying
Destroyers
that
being the Death Star of this movie. There we
Yeah.
go. We got there.
Okay, so question 1.
there was about 100,000 Star Destroyers.
Question
just
1.
Quickly.
Common misconception: the Death Star is being shielded. Is it okay? I want to
The forest moon of Endor.
Is
It's
it
in the Endor system.
It's in the Endor system, right? So the
The
forest.
planet's also called Endor.
The planet is called Endor.
It's a savage planet. They don't need to name it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
full of Ewoks. Who
So
cares?
they're not necessarily on that forest moon. They're on the other planet nearby. It's in the system, basically.
And also, the Death Star did explode into tiny little pieces and then suddenly is in like big chunks. But suspension of disbelief, I think, is essential
but
there.
also like allow for the fact that like think of the scale of the Death Star and then consider that from the distance and stuff. Like it's very plausible.
Even a crazy huge explosion, you can send bits of debris.
It's plausible that
stuff
like parts of it remained intact. Anyway,
that annoyed me a little bit.
Yeah, true. But again, this is exactly what I was saying before. So a lot of it was very convenient.
Also, the water all crazy on Endor would make sense if a big planetary mass exploded over it, because our moon does so much for our tides. I imagine something very similar would happen on Endor when the moon was attacked and another moon exploded.
Yeah.
So what was the second one? And then the second question you had, I'm not sure how.
The Star Destroyer is pretty much being the Death Star of this movie.
I think, look, Star Wars has Death Stars. That's like how it works. And I think it was kind of cool. It upped the stakes because it was a big fleet and it was going to kill a bunch of starships. And then when you realize they had Death Star weapons, the whole universe was at stake. I think it makes perfect sense.
It ups the stakes. Like, I mean, you go from like Death Star 1 to Death Star 1 power level to Death Star 2 power level to Starbase Killer.
Yeah. Starkiller Base.
Starkiller Base, sorry. Which is like terrifying.
Which killed a whole system.
From across the galaxy. It's just like, oh, by the way, we can just blow you up. From
Long range
wherever.
sniper scope.
They just like properly punched home the fact that like Sidious is done. This is his final thing. He's gonna hold a gun to every planet in the universe.
Yeah, which is literally what it was.
Yeah.
The technology obviously coming from like the Sith,
What's it called? Exitol?
Exitol.
Extol. Like Extel. Like
home of the Sith.
Like the
basically.
internet provider.
It's like it is literally the home of the Sith and all of those weird Sith worshipping dudes keeping
the fact that we brought in like kind of the old school Sith world really throws me back to like Knights of the Old Republic and stuff like that. I feel like we definitely get to feel like there's gonna be a lot more Sith artifacts, a lot more Jedi artifacts, and that's something that you can world build around.
They're already in canon because there's Sith holocron in Rebels.
Yeah, so I think that having these new, extended universe stories, what happens if some casual old person that's slightly Force Awakened finds one of these?
Yeah, for sure.
Like that's crazy cool.
I think they definitely allowed themselves to open up the universe more.
Yeah.
They've sort of embraced the Star Wars world.
Yeah.
I think they'll be handling things like that in series like The Mandalorian. Like maybe one episode he could, without spoiling The Mandalorian, without going too far, he could find someone who had a Sith holocron.
Yeah, for sure.
Like there could be a storyline for like an episode, very Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.-esque, very Doctor Who.
There's lots of options.
Without doing a whole movie about it.
Again, this is what I was saying before. That's one of the main reasons Disney bought it, is for the potential to create content. They needed a singular source that they could just spew out shows and movies and series and cartoons and games and all of the stuff off of one source, which is what they've got.
Darkness says that they think they liked Marvel better than Disney, Star Wars, and that's sad to say. Look, I agree. I think Disney have done a better job with their Marvel franchise than they have with their Star Wars franchise.
I think it's a little bit potato because
it's not over.
I don't think you can compare the two personally.
I think Marvel, you got to remember, you probably can, but Marvel had something like 15 or 20 movies to prepare for Endgame.
But they wrote them all at the same time.
Kind
of.
The continuity was there. The
100%.
art styles and the directorial styles all changed, but they had the storyline was consistent. They had an end goal. They knew where they were going from start to finish.
Yeah.
Granted, in different art, they did it in like segments, in phases. I imagine. I do imagine
phases.
Exactly right. If you look at the Marvel movies, the phases are quite clear, and it's very possible that they actually wrote them in the phases and then didn't write
story arc sections.
Didn't write phase 2 until phase 1 had sort of been fleshed out completely and then moved on. But still.
Right, fire away, Doug. Let's get a question about the MCU. We'll use this because it's really hot in this room, so I'm going to wrap this up. So we're going to finish on an MCU question, and then if you want to continue this conversation, you can jump on the comments for this video below. You can just comment on Facebook or send us a message saying, even just come in the store, check us out. We love talking about this stuff.
We've been doing it all day, all night.
Also,
it's been horrible.
on a side note, if any of you are Highlander players, that's about to happen next. We're going to be jamming some Highlander games.
Here we are. All right, let's get this MCU question going.
Yeah. Because, why not talk about MCU and a Star Wars
cast? I'm curious now.
Darkness did mention, I do want to see more movies overall. They did think that this movie was decent, and I think it's what we touched on before, like having the extended universe open up. I'm really excited to see things like Sith holocron, seeing like broom-holding man, little Force user do some stuff, people back on the slave planets, what they get to feel.
From everything I've seen...
I don't know the answer to the question.
From everything I've seen... All the phases up to now, how would you feel about Kang the Conqueror?
All right, so I'll jump in on this one. I've got a huge opinion on this. I honestly believe, because we've spoken about this a couple times, if you're looking for the next big baddie, I really want to see Disney make a huge grab for the Fantastic Four franchise, and I want to see Doctor Doom. I think Doctor Doom
he makes sense.
Really is a culprit and an evil villain. If you look in all of the history of what he does, he sits on that similar level as Thanos. I think it's impossible.
I don't know who Kang the Conqueror is.
Yeah, I think it's impossible to get above Thanos because he's just such a good villain. But I think Doctor Doom has this real good sense of lawful evil.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. So my take on it with the MCU, the one thing that made Thanos make like such a good villain is his what's the word? Not his origins, but like his motivations. Yeah. Essentially makes sense.
Well, they were good. He wasn't evil for evil's sake.
No.
He was trying to help.
He had a very fleshed out backstory and a reason as to why he truly believed what he was doing was correct and he was helping the universe.
Unlike Sidious.
Exactly right. So his evil wasn't evil for evil's sake. It just wasn't in line with what you would consider good. You know what I mean? Like he had a method to his madness, essentially. Like he knew what he was doing and why he was doing it, and he had perfect reasoning behind it. When someone said to him, "Why are you doing this?" He's like, "Well, here's why." And
to bring that into Star Wars, though.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, Sidious is evil for evil's sake. He was evil in the original trilogy when it was made. When like those movies were very they were very they were campy because that's what it was. No one else had done it back then. He was just an evil bad guy. In the prequels, they made him. he
have reason.
He wanted to bring peace to the galaxy by ruling it.
By ruling it,
because he literally says that. He says, "Then we will have peace," and then he dies. That's a fun fact. He dies, and then he comes back and he says, "I've died before." And now he's just like, "No, I tried to help this world. They killed me off.
I will just rule it.
I'm just going to rule it now." So he's like become more twisted than he was in the original trilogy.
And also you got to allow for the fact that like obviously the
Palpatine,
the darkness of the Sith, like the actual,
so cool.
like the overpowering weight of all the evil that's come before. You know, all the Siths are living in him. Like think about how much that would affect a person.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
Let's be real. Like even if you intended to do all the good in the world, if you've got all the evil and darkness that's happened before
and he's so
on your
smart.
shoulders.
Like he planned the whole thing. He made Anakin so he could then create a clone war, to then create an empire, to then have it ripped out from under him. He went, okay, cool. Plan B, make a bigger empire.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna become Mecha Palpatine.
Plan C, make a bigger empire. First order, final order.
Yeah. So
very quickly, just touch on the whole Kang the Conqueror. Look, I think it does make sense. He is supposed to be a time traveling.
Who is this dude?
He's a time traveling villain who actually has several versions of himself. So they use time travel to solve the end game problem. And I think he could definitely come in and be like, "Yo, what's happening over here?" He's similar to Rick and Morty. When you've got the time traveling little blob boy. It's like, you messing up space. You got your time levels all over the place. What's happening here? So I think that would make sense, but simultaneously, he's just not a big enough. He's just not a big enough villain or well-known villain.
To be honest,
really
I genuinely agree that the best thing that could happen to the MCU is have a person like Doctor Doom.
But yeah,
really cool.
But it's hot as hell in his room. So let's continue this conversation in store, in person, or in the comments below. Subscribe for more of this awesome content. We're going to jump straight into a sort of more. So we're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to do some live Magic Highlander in the store.
We're going to jam expensive cards against each other.
Going to be pretty fun. Come join that conversation if you are into that. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.
See you.
Thank you all for coming by.
Peace.